Yun and Yang. You probably know them from the Street Fighter games, right? But have you ever stopped and thought, man, these two need their own TV series? And I'm not just talking about fight scenes. I'm talking about the struggles, the brotherhood, the personal journey. Stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're definitely going to agree with me.
Here comes a new challenge.
Even further, because Yun and Yang aren't just twins, they're opposites forged by the same struggle. Yun moves first and thinks later. His recklessness isn't from stupidity, it's confidence born from talent and hunger. He wants more out of life, more than just surviving, more than just the streets. Yang, meanwhile, sees the bigger picture. Every move he makes is measured, every risk calculated. He's not slower, he's not smarter. Where Yun charges forward, Yang steadies the ground beneath them. Chaos and order, ambition and restraint. Their story doesn't begin in a world tournament or under bright lights. It starts in back alleys, rooftops, crowded streets. They learn how to fight not for trophies, but to protect themselves and each other. Before masters, before techniques, it was instinct and brotherhood. That's what separates them from most fighters. In Street Fighter 3, their bond was built before the world ever even noticed. Every clash they survive, every rival they face, is shaped that shared the past of grinding, adapting, and refusing to fall. Now imagine a series that actually sits with that quiet moments after fights. Yun choosing dreams that might pull him away. Yang holding things together when reality hits. Arguments, disagreements, growth. Not just flashy kicks and super arts, but real life pressure. Because at the core of Yun and Yang isn't just speed or skill. It's the question of how far two brothers can go together before the world tries to split them apart. Now here's where it really goes insane, because when you sit with it long enough and really watch the way Yun and Yang move, fight, and react, you realize you're not just looking at gameplay. You're watching personality translated into motion, psychology turned into animation, character writing done without a single dialogue. Because Yun isn't just fast, he's reckless fast. The kind of speed that feels like it's always one mistake away from disaster. But that's the point. He's young, he's confident, he believes momentum alone can carry him through anything, and every time he dives in head first, every time he commits before thinking, it enforces who he is at his core. Someone who learns by crashing forward, someone who grows through trial and error, rather than patience. While Yang exists as this perfect counterbalance, not slower, but measured, not weaker, but refined. And when Yang strikes, it feels deliberate. Like every button press, it's a decision. Every movement is calculated as if he's already read the next 3 seconds of the fight before they even happen. And that contrast is where the storytelling lives. Because in a series format, every fight becomes a chapter. Every exchange becomes dialogue. Yoon rushing too early isn't just a combo starter. It's him refusing to wait, refusing to slow down, refusing to doubt himself. And when it backfires, that's narrative. Consequence, that's character. Growth waiting to happen. While Yang, standing back, choosing his moment, letting Yoon burn energy while he stays composed. That's discipline. That's restraint. That's someone who understands that control beats chaos in the long run. And the beauty is that neither approach is painted as wrong. Because sometimes Yoon's wildness overwhelms opponents who can't keep up. And sometimes Yoon's patience, Yang's patience, fights and wins before they even start. That's what makes them compelling over time. Because you're not watching good versus evil. You're watching two philosophies clash and coexist. Speed versus timing, impulse versus foresight. Emotion versus clarity. And when you stretch that across episodes, arcs, rivalries, training sessions, losses, rematches, it becomes rich. It becomes layered. Because you start to feel Yoon's frustration when his rushdown fails. You feel Yang's quiet concern when Yoon doesn't listen. You feel this unspoken bond. Between them, Yang doesn't need to lecture you. Yoon doesn't need to explain. Because their fighting styles already say everything. And that's why it works so well for a series. You don't need exposition dumps. You don't need heavy dialogue. The fights are every story. The choreography is the character development. And every time Yoon dashes forward, you're reminded that he's chasing growth at full speed. And every time Yang waits, watches, and strikes at the perfect moment. You're reminded that mastery isn't about how fast you move, but about knowing when to move. And by the time you've watched enough of their battles, you don't just say, wow, that's cool. You start saying, I know exactly why he did that. Because the moves stop being flashy and start being meaningful. And that's when you realize you're not just watching fights anymore. You're watching two characters tell you who they really are over and over again without having to say a word.
Here comes a new challenger.
Here's where it really goes insane, because when you sit with it long and really watch the way Yin and Yang move, fight, and react, you realize you're not just looking at gameplay. You're watching personality translated into motion, psychology turned into animation, character writing done without a single line of dialogue. Because Yoon isn't just fast, he's reckless fast. And the kind of speed that feels it's always one mistake away from disaster. But that's the point. He's young, he's confident, he believes momentum alone could carry him through anything. And every time he dives in head first, every time he commits before thinking, it reinforces who he is at his core. Someone who learns by crashing forward, someone who grows through trial and error, rather than patience, while Yang exists as this perfect counterbalance. Not slower, but measured, not weaker, but refined. And when Yang strikes, it feels deliberate. Like every button pressed is a decision. Every movement is calculated as if he's already read the next 3 seconds of the fight before they even happen. That contrast is where the storytelling lives. Because in a series, every fight becomes a chapter. Every exchange becomes a dialogue. Every Russian is a using to slow down. When it backfires, that's not waiting to happen. Stand back, choosing his moment. He earned while he stays composed. That's strength. Control. Good versus evil. You're watching philosophies clash and coexist. Speed versus timing. Impulse versus foresight. Emotion versus clarity. And when you stretch that across episodes, arcs, rivalries, training, sessions, losses, rematches, it becomes rich, it becomes layered. Because you start to feel Yoon's frustration when his rushdown fails. You feel Yang's quiet concern when Yoon doesn't listen. You feel the unspoken bond between them, where Yang doesn't need to lecture and Yoon doesn't need to explain. Because their fighting styles already say everything. And that's why it works so well for a series. You don't need exposition dumps. You don't need heavy dialogue. The fights, the story, the choreography is the character development. And every time Yoon dashes forward, you're reminded that he's chasing growth at full speed. Every time Yang waits, watches, and strikes at the perfect moment, you're reminded that mastery isn't about how fast you move, but about knowing when to move. And by the time you've watched enough of their battles, you don't just say, wow, that's cool. You start saying, I know exactly why he did that. Because the moves stop being flashy and start being meaningful. And that's when you realize you're not just watching fights anymore. You're watching two characters that tell you who they really are, over and over and over again, without ever having to say a word. And to push it even further, what really elevates this idea is how repetition itself becomes storytelling. Because over time, you start noticing patterns. Yoon always trying to force the issue, always believing that this time his speed will be enough, that this rush will break through, and that the stubborn consistency tells you something important about him. He's chasing proof that he's good enough, proof that raw talent and heart can stand shoulder to shoulder with discipline and experience. While Yang, on the other hand, feels like someone who already understands the cause of impatience, someone who's seen what happens when you go too fast without thinking. And that's why his restraint feels earned rather than passive. Like he's actively choosing not to overextend, actively choosing clarity over ego. And when these traits clash in a long form series, the tension writes itself. Because every time you loses due to rushing, it plants a seed. Will he finally slow down, or will he double down even harder? And every time Yang wins by waiting, it raises another question. Will patience be always enough when the stakes rise, or will he eventually be forced to act before he's ready? And that's where the emotional weight comes in. Because the fights aren't just about winning or losing. They're about identity being tested, under pressure, philosophy being challenged in a real time, and the audience starts picking sides, not because one twin is right and the other twin is wrong, but because they recognize parts of themselves in both appearances and approaches. That urge to rush versus the instinct to wait, that internal battle between acting now or thinking longer, and when you frame it like that, every blocked attack, every whiff strike, every perfectly timed counter becomes symbolic. You learning that hard way, that passion without control burns out fast. Realize miss. So that battle, that slow brothers start falling pieces up. That's the long game. That's the kind of art that keeps people invested for seasons. Because growth doesn't come from abandoning who you are. It comes from refining it. And by the end, when Yoon finally rushes with intent instead of recklessness, or Yang finally strikes early because he trusts his read, those moments hit harder. Precisely because you've seen where they started. You've seen the mistakes. You've seen the losses. The stubbornness. And that's when the audience realizes the fights were never just spectacle. They were lessons told through motion, rhythm, and impact, unfolding one clash at a time.
Here comes a new challenger.
When you talk about brotherhood, you're talking about emotional stakes, the reason the fights matter in the first place. For Yoon and Yang, the bond isn't just we fight together.
Here comes a new challenger.
They argue, they clash, and even oppose each other at times. But it's never about ego. It's about different views of life. That tension feels real because siblings fight precisely because they care.
Here comes a new challenger.
The moments where one steps in without asking, covers the other's mistake, or silently understands what the other is feeling. No dialogue needed. That's powerful TV.
Here comes a new challenger.
Growing up together, struggling together, surviving the streets together. Every laugh and argument carries weight because it's built on years of shared experiences.
Here comes a new challenger.
One reckless, one composed. One moves on instinct, the other moves on precision. Their brotherhood works because they fill each other's gaps. Alone, they're strong. Together, they're complete. That's why people connect beyond fights. Fights end, explosions fade, but relationships keep people watching. A TV series lets the audience live with them. See the quiet moments, the jokes, the frustrations, the sacrifices. By the time a fight happens, viewers aren't watching punches anymore. They're watching what's at risk. Difference between an action show that's cool and the series that can actually be kept for so many years.
Here comes a new challenger.
When you say street level beginnings, you're talking about grounding the story. Not legendary warriors yet, Just kids surviving, hustling, learning who they really are. For Yin and Yang, that means showing before the confidence, before the swagger, the losses, the mistakes, the nights they were barely scraped by. That makes every later victory mean something. Rivalries go beyond who's stronger. A series can explore jealousy, insecurity, and pride. What happens when one brother gets attention faster? When crowds chant one name louder than the other? Games hint at this, but a show lets it breathe. Rivalry becomes emotional, not just competitive. Just arenas, they're worlds. Backroom deals, fighters who cheat, promoters who exploit talent. The danger isn't just losing talent, the danger is losing control of your life. That adds tension you can't show in a 2-minute arcade ending. Now, the big stuff the games barely touch: fame. What does it cost? Fans, pressure, expectations. Being known means being watched. Betrayal. Friends selling them out. Mentors hiding truths. Trust gets tested. Not just romance.
Let's get this started! Oh man, I love a good fight!
Are you?
Fights become expressions of emotion. Yun fights reckless when he's angry. Yang fights calm when he's hiding stress. A loss hits harder because you know it's at stake outside the ring. Each episode balancing heart, tension, and action means quiet moments matter as much as knockouts. Dialogue hits as hard as combos. Viewers come back not for the moves, but for the people.
Here comes a new challenger.
Look, fans already love these guys. Imagine giving them more than just gameplay, giving them stories, personalities, stakes. That's a hit right there. Gamers, martial arts fans, even anime watchers, they'd all be tuned in. And here's the next level to it. You're not just watching Yun and Yang throw hands anymore. You're watching choices. Discussions that actually cost something. Every episode raises the question: do they chase strength or protect each other? Do they stay free spirits or get pulled into something bigger than them? Street fights turn into underground tournaments. Friendly rivalries turn into real consequences. That playful banter, it slowly gets tested when money, pride, and loyalty are on the line. And that's why it works beyond gamers. Martial arts fans are authentic with movement and philosophy. Anime fans get brotherhood and tension, character arcs. And gamers, They finally get to live inside the world of Street Fighter, not just select from a menu. No gods, no well-ending beings, just speed, skill, attitude. And two brothers trying not to lose themselves in the chaos. That's not just a spin-off. That's a series people binge, quote, and argue about online. And honestly, it feels overdue. And the fights, cinematic. Every punch, every combo could tell a story. You get the hype from the action, and at the same time, you're invested in the characters. That's how you make a series very memorable. So yeah, Yun and Yang aren't just fighters, they're brothers. They're legends, and their story deserves to be told. Not just the moves, but the struggles, the bond, the journey. Now I want you to imagine it. Picture it in your head. A full TV series. Wouldn't that be insane?
Hey there, this is Kyle Hebert, better known as the voice of Ryu from Street Fighter. The answer lies in the heart of battle. Hadouken! Remember to like and subscribe to Duke to Street Fighter on YouTube.